Hello.
Hello, everyone.
hilaryHraefnPorter.
Cosmic Messenger.
A.k.a. Derek.
Derek Panic.
Hello. We are coming at you again from the Star Temple. I know you've heard us say that a couple times now, because we love it here.
Yeah, you're going to hear it lots more.
It's
going to keep on coming.
Oh, yeah. What did we just do? I just received Gaia Gaia Code. Yeah. Scrub. And so we're working our way through the chakras. So you can check out other videos. It talks a little bit more about what the scrubs are, but the brief version is it's puo'shk Tameana, which is a sacred star medicine of consciousness. And we go through the layers. And so this round was going through Nan Tena Mate, which is the sacral chakra within each of the 7 foundational chakras. Because chakras are not just one plane of existence. They're fractal within each other. Fractal within fractal within fractal. They just through, right? So this goes through, and with association to the Gaia code cord, goes really, really deep within the cells.
Goes under the feet.
It goes under the feet. So there's a way that the symbols are laid out, the light language encodings are laid out, and this one goes down, literally down into the different layers of the earth. So we're going to do something a little bit different. Usually we talk about the surface stuff and a little bit of the depth as well, yes, but we don't go through all the things. And today I decided that I could be a little bit more vulnerable with the sharing, as I was the receiver and Derek was the provider. So a lot of the stuff that came, all the stuff that came through for different layers of it are stuff that pertain to part of my journey and what I'm working through. And so we're going to go through each one of those. The second half is the Gaia code symbols. And what the guides do is they give us a little bit in relation to what is going on for me, but they're also right now giving us a lot of more data, information, guidance about what each of these layers is doing as we work through them with other beings as well, i.e. you. So this was actually a pretty entertaining scrub, I think. I think it was in the sense that I would go in and leave, but you're traveling around, stuff's happening. And I would go in deep, so deep, and then come out and just be like, bing,
wired awake.
And just wired awake. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm good. And then I would go down. At one point, I was like, what are we on, the sacral? And Derek's like, dude.
Second level, near the beginning.
Yeah, and Derek's like, we're on the heart.
We were just finishing. We're already on the 5th one.
So I had entered, when we first entered, so I laid on the table. We hadn't even activated any of the grids yet. And everything just went, heavy. So the Gaia code was really, really amazing for starseeds. Or people that are feeling disembodied, not comfortable within this body, not at ease in this body, kind of going, what are the mechanics of this body? I don't know what's going on, right? And so it really helps, and you can feel it the second you're laying in the grid. It's just like, ooh. So I went in. So I was like, what are you doing? Why are you going from top? He's like, I've already gone through the bottom ones, and I'm going from the bottom up. And I was like, oh.
And just so people know, why do they call it Gaia code? And we've heard the word Gaia before. We have Earth, as we call it in 3D. And then we have 2 cousins, which are elevated versions of ourselves. And they're also completely different planets, but they're very, very close cousins. And then there's a parallel Earth. So you got Earth in 3D, Tara is 5D, and then Gaia is 7th dimensional.
Yeah. So
that's what we're working towards, right? So this carries 7th dimensional templates.
Yeah.
And then sends them through the cord.
Yeah.
Chords.
Yes, and the reason why it's called code, exactly, cord and cord, because of the attachment as well as the sound, as well as the codes, because it's entering the matrix codes. So this first time that I was like, why aren't you working from the bottom up? All of a sudden I was like, when I woke up, but when I came back to this space, I was like, oh, my ankle. And it felt like my left foot had turned into this club foot. And right on kidney 6, so you have your inner ankle bone, it's right below there, and I could feel this sharp. It was literally as if you took a shard and stabbed it in that point. And I was like, oh, that kind of hurts. Not to the point where I was thrashing or anything, but I was like, oh, that's very uncomfortable. I'm also used to dealing with a lot of pain on a regular basis. So I was like, oh, okay, that's happening. So Derek went down and did some Reiki, some multidimensional Reiki
Universal
stuff.
life force energy currents.
Yeah, I did that. But it was interesting because we were just finishing the heart level, and it's the kidney. And if you watch some of the other videos, I've talked lots about the kidney-heart axis points, right? And that's balancing the love and the fear. The play and the work. The water, the fire. The Ming Men. And so it's the lower twin flames within, and creating that resonance with that. So I was experiencing that.
Anytime Hilary says like kidney 10, heart 4, whatever the numbers are, that's acupuncture terminology, and they're the meridian lines and also little energy vortices throughout our body.
Yeah.
We actually have 72,000 entrance points, but these are some of the more potent ones. Think of the chakras, and then all of those points go together, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say that, or if I say KD10, I'm like, kidney 10.
Bladder 10. Yeah.
And so those are the different, the acupuncture points. And so then I was awake from that point for a little bit more. And I was looking up, and so, I don't know if you know, but when I look at the sky, I see little squiggly energy guys, right? They're just like, and they're just like super squiggly energy guys. And so I was looking up through the portal that is at the Star Temple, the birthing portal, i.e. the skylight. And I was like, oh, the squiggles, right? They were there and they were so prominent. And then I looked over at the wall. And like, I can usually I see different layers when I'm looking at walls and stuff like that. But it literally looked like it had just been glitter bombed. And it wasn't like out in the sky, it was like all the way through, down through the walls, down through the space. And I was like, oh, that's happening now. So that was lovely. That was like an advancement, an enhancement. So when we were at the level of the heart, and when I had the ankle stuff happening, I also had this really intense gut wrenching, and it was really, so this session was very physical for me, and it was a big purge. Like I'm going to be processing this for a couple of days. It was very intense. Derek knows me as going, yeah, it was intense, and it's like, it doesn't seem like it was intense to me. It's because I'm an inward processor. So you're like, oh, you seem fine on the surface. Yeah, there's a lot going on inside right now. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling going on. There is a lot of shuffling going on. But there was this gut wrenching, like doubled over, when you're just like sobbing and everything's just like deep. Yeah, that was happening. I was like, I feel like I'm nauseous. And I was like, no, it's not nausea. And it was that, like, I even explained at one point, when you're punched in the gut. I've never been punched in the gut. But if you're like punched and you just have that like doubled over, like, of emotion of just purge, right? Had that going on. Yeah. So those were like the highlights. And literally I would like go in and be like, oh yeah, it's nice. And then I'd come out and be like, oh, we've only done like a half a symbol. And then I'd be like, oh, look, we're 3 symbols down. And then I'd come out and I'd be like, pizza. At one point I was like, let's go home and we have this new gluten-free pizza recipe and it's amazing. I was like, and I want this on it and this on it. And then, and I was like, what? Not, so usually I come out and I'm kind of like, And I'm like a little, and I'm just, that's what I've noticed. Because last time we did the Gaia Code, the next day I had energy, which is amazing.
That's what I work with. Plus the medicine, the star medicine, it's all co-creation, right? It's all revitalizing.
So I tend to, I have a little bit of a list of chronic conditions that are cyclical and they vary and all this other stuff. I'm blessed to have the medicines that I do, the wisdoms that I do, so I can work with them and make it sort of functional. And energy is one of them, and consistent energy levels. And so I'm excited to see what happens after this one. But apparently, so now we're going to go through, so we work through from the root up to the crown. And when we get to the crown, we go back down from the crown, down to Sadaha, back down to the root, and we change the guiding symbol. The guiding symbol then becomes the Gaia Code symbols. So we're going to go through some of the stuff, and I'll elaborate, and Derek will elaborate.
I'm going to elaborate. I'm not going to read it exactly how it is, but I'll tell you exactly what was written down.
Yeah.
Okay, so plane 1. So I'm just going to call them 1 to 14. It'll make it easier.
So this So this is the root chakra. This is Sadaha.
Right.
And through
But
all
then
of these, we're using Nan Tena Mate. So the sacral's in all of them. But this was the plane.
That's exactly why, because it's the same all the way down through. So basically, the first plane was all about being comfortable with your physical environment. We're talking your home itself and your living situation. It was about eating blood-building foods and giving that thanks to your home. We get so used to living in it, but how often do we give it gratitude? You are amazing. I love where I live. All of that. It doesn't mean that everybody's in a place, but it's your session, right?
Yeah, and so like I said, the first 7 planes were very focused. These were focused on things that I am working through, or areas that I can go to do more work, or to just be more conscious. And one of the things that comes up in one of my cycles is I get bored. And also, I have a challenging time with the EMF, a very challenging time with the EMF. And I tend to remix things that'll come in later. But this is very much just about the blood building as well. So iron deficiency, right? And so it's making sure we have those, which also, if we're blood deficient, we're often yin deficient as well. So that nourishing, that cooling. And as going through my Uranus opposition and that lovely change of life that we go through in our 40s.
Next year.
We go through in our 40s as females, we have a lot of that yin deficiency happening. So it makes sense that they're like blood building foods, right? Awesome. It was just interesting because over the last week, I've really been wanting to like roast the beets and just have like, or steam the beets and just have like, yum.
Those deep red foods. Oh my God, vegetables especially. So it's basically for the second one.
Nan Tena Mate, which is our sacral.
This is all about remixing. So remembering, so Hilary likes to remix her home. Change up the living room, move the stuff around in the bedrooms. Every 3-4 months things get shuffled. It's actually really lovely and a quick, simple process that, you usually get it done in an evening or an afternoon. And multiple things get changed and it refreshes everything. But this is about not just rearranging and remixing your home. This is more of the second plane was all about freshening up how you do things. So you're walking down the street, you're like, I could turn that way, I don't normally take that street. Or I've taken that street, but I'm going to take it in the other direction. And start to be mindful about all of those things around in your life that you can do. Oh, I haven't pulled out this piece of clothing in a while. I'm just going to redo that shelf a little bit. But it was more about in your environment outside of the home. Yeah. And how you can just like find those different ways. I'm going to check out this other independent grocery store instead of going here. And, maybe I'm going to cook these foods a little bit differently than I normally do. And it can help revitalize everything so we don't feel like we're stuck in these mundane routines that aren't getting us anywhere. And finding the balance point between appreciating them and remixing them. Yeah. Okay.
And so, I'm gonna share.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And then, so, when it's interesting when we do this work, how we can notice as we're more and more in resonance, the work that we do can, like the spiritual work, the energy work, can remind us or help support that we're on the right path with what we're doing, as well as giving us ideas of like, this is what's next. So like yesterday, I went and grabbed some books from the library, and instead of taking my usual route, I didn't walk, I took my bike, which I'd be like, I'll just walk.
That's still a switch up.
That's a switch up. And then instead of going the one way, I was like, I'll go the other way. And what's interesting is the divine supports these changes as well. So we've had pop-up central construction, and so we've been having to switch up our routes from that, but that has also changed up those. But yes, it's an interesting but I've walked, it actually made me think of I walked forward down the street. Well, because we only have so many roads out of our space. I'm like, I'm going to walk sideways. I'm going to dance down the street, because that's kind of the stuff that we do.
I mean, when you go out to any home, unless you go diagonally, you really only have 4 choices.
Yeah. But we tend to often go the same way.
Especially the way streets are made in cities, too, if that's where you live.
So it's a good reminder. Awesome. So next is Komataya, which is the solar plexus.
Time to increase the feelings of everything that has to do with self-worth inside and radiate it out and beam it. Sounds like a simple task, but it's not. We get trapped in so many self-defeating negative thought patterns that the cells are listening to everything, even when we joke about it. Unless you create a container before saying that you're making this for that space, which requires us to breathe, take a moment, do that, and then speak, which would look kind of awkward. your cells are listening to it and it doesn't decipher the messages, whether they're positive or negative.
And even the ones within our brain pan.
Yep.
Right? So, so this is something as we step more and more out into our public personas, even more and more and more and more and more and more and more. It's just reminding.
And more and more and more and more.
And more. It's reminding. It's just the reminder of like, yeah, you got this, right? And so I'm currently going through the energetic death, and I come out of this in February as per my astrology chart, and I'm deleting, releasing, clearing, reprogramming patterns from childhood of all the stories that I was told about you're only worth this if you do this, right? Like anything that's creative is not. How are you going to make money at that? That makes no sense. And to me, this existence that we're currently living is creative, right? It's working with different tools and different things and bringing them together to create this beautiful canvas and to help people create their own beautiful canvas. And so I'm really like that programming it's big. So it makes sense.
Plane 4, the Somadasi saw the heart.
Heart.
Archangel Sandalphon.
So this was interesting.
Sandalphon.
So this is Aura-Soma. If you don't know Aura-Soma, I highly recommend you look it up. Aura Soma, S-O-M-A. Amazing vibrational medicine that we both lean into right now. Actually, we tend to have bottles going.
I've been using it since 2014 quite regularly.
Yeah, so they're amazing. And so this one is very indicative. What was this? So Sandalphon is the archangel associated with the sphere of Malkuth on the Tree of Life. He's concerned with the whole of existence upon Earth, Gaia, puo'shk, with the transmutation of negativity in the conscious mind, what we were just talking about in the plane before, and with the new man, right? And so that's that emergence of new human, that new being, that new existence. It's the new man shares joys, bliss, and insight visible to others. It's the capacity for unconditional love that helps through this process of change, and it helps with the communication with the devas and angels. So we can see these layers from this one that so far have come out in other layers of the scrub.
It's a color therapy system, so for this, the medicine is also embodied into the lilac and the coral as well too.
Which was the
pale
of the bottom.
octaves of them.
Yeah, so interesting. So active altar. So this would be something that would be an idea to put on my active altar to really bring in those energies, right?
Soma, the heart. No.
Throat.
We were just on the heart.
Yeah.
So this was about the old ways of creating aren't serving you no longer. Not what you're creating, not like I'm painting, but how you're painting it and how you're really feeling as you're painting it. Mainly the feelings and the methods to how that goes. Because if you're not feeling it in your core, but yet you do it and everybody around is like, that's beautiful, and you come up with so many inventive ways to do things, then how is it bringing you joy into your life? How are you really embodying the whole picture of it? If on the surface it looks like it's joy.
So the example for this one, because again, these first 7 layers are very much what I'm currently shifting through. So I'm currently working on my website, and I do this even with my paintings and stuff like that. So I'm a creator. I love to create. I love to give birth to things. It's part of me, right? And hence the remixes and all that other stuff. And working on the website, and so I just released the new program, Metamorphosis, and I did that page so that I could release it. And I showed Derek, and he was just like,
This is absolutely beautiful.
And so this is what's great though. Like, even though you'd be like, oh, well, your partner has to say it. No, we don't do that in our house. If we see something, we're like, oh, no. We say it. And so he's just like, it's so great. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, that's good, I guess. I'm like, yeah. Right? But then scroll through it, and then I'm like, I'll probably like it better later. And then I come back to it later. I'm like, oh, I really like it now. And that is a pattern for me. And even my artwork, like I'll go back and look at stuff that I did years ago that at the time I was like, that's okay. And then I look at it now, I'm like, why did I think that was just okay, right? And so that's that original speak of, and it's okay to not enjoy something, but it's different to be like, ooh, I really don't like that, versus like that doesn't jive, versus like, yeah, actually, you know what, that's good. And it doesn't mean I won't do something to it later, but it's that initial like, yeah, breathe for a sec. Don't even have a judgment in your head and just look at it with fresh eyes of clear. And it's always, I find, the hardest to do it when it's in relation to ourselves, right?
Yeah, let the frustration go. And whether we like it or not, it's frustration inside of ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
And this is a recovering OCD perfectionist. So I'm doing good considering where I used to be. But there's still more. There's still more to do. Right?
Next layer, Name Mate. It's a little bit lower. So that's when you started seeing the squiggles of energy that you described earlier. So that kind of takes off that part. So we talked about that. When you do more vibrational work, you start to see more particles, or you have the potential to see more. Everybody will interact differently with how that happens in their field. Check your Neptune in your birth chart for astrology for how you will communicate the spirit world out into your physical. Some see a lot of particles, ear tones, light flash. Others get visualizations. It's all over the place. Some get them all. Yours are increasing when it comes to seeing the energy particles, which you've already had that.
Yep.
But it's going to another layer. And the other one was a return to dolphin pattern reprogramming. Now, what is that? Or what was I referencing? Or what was Spirit referencing?
The Pleiadian workbook. So the Pleiadian workbook is amazing. It's one of my favorite books. It's one of our favorite books.
Amora Kwanyan.
Yeah, Amora Kwanyan. And she goes through all these different layers of Pleiadian access codes and meditations, and one of them, because there's a big correlation between the dolphins and the Pleiadians, right? Lemuria, Atlantis, blah, all that. And there's a sequence in there called dolphin repatterning, which we have been intending to access and do, but we have not done yet. And so, and it was a year ago?
We read a good chunk of the books. We did some of the exercises together, so we have done some.
Well, I read the whole book.
Yeah, but we've read them together.
Yeah.
And quite a bit of them we did, and there's a lot of them in the book, so we haven't completed them all, but it would just be good to go pick another one that's relevant, like Orasoma in the moment. Oh, I need that one.
Well, and that's the thing, is there was a specific one in the book called the dolphin repatterning. And so that's why I was like, oh, and it's that reminder to actually, for me, that's what it...
And I'm just going to throw out something else too. The dolphin pattern reprogramming is the name of her entire school of all of the meditations put together. So there's probably one literally called that. Yeah. Plus that's kind of like the teachings that she brought in.
Yeah.
Dolphins and whales on a higher octave on a non-distorted planet are here for a very special purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be accessing that
cool.
at some point.
That's good to clarify. It's been a while. Homatahi, plane 7, which is the crown chakra. Don't overthink it, just do. And you have a strong connection to source. Just meaning like it is robust, it's vibrant, it's radiant. That's kind of a general message that happens with when I do offer Hilary a session or we're testing something out.
Yeah. And then spleen.
The crown, everything's open.
Yeah, and then spleen 10 came up as well. So that's also very nourishing for the blood as well.
I'll let you pronounce those because we're still learning them. Number 8, Sung Tao.
Sung Tao.
There we go.
So that's this guy. Woo, see, I'm even showing you the symbols now.
It's like ancient Asian light language.
So now we're getting into, this is when the guiding symbol changes goes down into the Gaia code. And so these are more in data information sharings of, these are the access points that these symbols allow us to access. How many times did I say access?
I don't know. Access.
Mm-hmm.
So today was a lot more less of like specifically what Hilary was going through in the cord, because it's new. It's a new medicine. So I get a lot of information about what takes place in them, not just in the being, but how does that symbol function? How does that chakra work? Why does this template do what it does?
Yeah. And
the potentials for anybody who walks into its field.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through some of those.
Yeah.
The one who keeps the codes of the stargates. So we've heard the term Stargate. People may have seen the movie. There's 12 stargates, access points on Earth, and those are different points in which you can access incarnation into different dimensions. Earth has 3, I think there might be a 4th one, literal stargates where you enter the portal and then you go into the cave of creation and then the soul enters a human body or an animal body or a plant kingdom and etc. And so these stargates are primarily for humanoid-like souls to access through, or very advanced animal kingdom wildlife. So we are natural protectors of these stargates and guardians of the planet. But they're making it seem like we're not. So it's an interesting thing. So if we lost our connection to the codes to keep the stargates active, hence why people sometimes feel like they're in a soul trap and they just keep coming back to Earth infinitely, it's because you haven't done the ascension work. Or you have a stargate blocked and you didn't realize I had to do that to get out, because we don't teach kids to do that at all. So fascinating stuff. So somebody's got to keep the codes. It's a reminder and a gatekeeper that the codes will be kept. Somebody and groups of beings will be able to transmute those codes. They will not fully disappear, even though they might go dormant and go really into hiding.
I was going to say, that even speaks to like Tameana. So Tameana disappeared for the longest time when the Lemurians were wiped out. And so there was this language, there was this sharing of this star medicine, and it was shared and shared and shared, and then all of a sudden they were wiped out. So the wisdom disappeared. But the thing is, the wisdom didn't disappear, it just wasn't present here. And so then in 2017, 2007, I always get me and numbers, anyways, back in the 2000s, before there was a gentleman, Juan Manuel, down in South America who was in the right space at the right time, and he was an open portal. So the Pleiadians brought down this medicine again from the Galactic Council, transmitted it through him, certain levels and certain layers, to bring it back to be introduced to Earth. And then when I was trained, I was the second portal to do the advanced puo'shk Tameana, Atuto Sacred Heart Tameana, which goes into more levels and other levels. And so that's a pure example of it was wiped out, but then it was reintroduced, because it doesn't disappear. It's still vibrationally in there, in wherever, up in the stars, in the ethers, in our current. It just needs to be brought back.
Cool. Right. Plane 9, Shim Sonao.
Shim Sonao.
Which is second layer of the Gaia cord.
So this one would also relate, they do have a relation to the foundational planes of existence, and this one, the other one was relational to root, and this one is relational to sacral. Okay,
so two things came up first off, and you clarified this. You have seen through walls before. Through the walls. Yeah. Like, X-ray vision on a whole nother plane of reality.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, before I got shut down to preserve, because I grew up in the early 80s in small town, where it was like this stuff, you didn't talk about the stuff, you didn't do the stuff. I'd have out-of-body experiences, I had a guide help me levitate, see through walls, understand people's thoughts, like all these things. But then they shut me down intentionally so that I could be preserved to when it was safe to be activated again. Cool. So interesting.
And then the other one that came up was, so it'll be in the 12th dimension, and then it drops down to the 3rd. If you incarnate anywhere in the 12, you'll see some form of matter. And it gets really transparent as you go up the chain of events. But above that, there's a 13th, 14th, and 15th dimension. 15 dimensions make up our whole time matrix that we are living in now. These are the primal light currents, and how they enter and form into matter on a planet in order to have biological life. Very interesting. Okay. Plane 10.
Some city.
Oh yeah.
Some city. And if you
we're still bringing the other shot, Nan Tena Mate going through the whole thing, and then each individual 7 planes of existence. The first are coming, so Soma's with that one too.
Yeah.
Okay. This is gonna get really wild for you guys. So we have ourselves right here. You, your soul, and all your soul is beyond the physical body. But let's make it easy for you. That's your soul. Then you have your oversoul, which has 144 parts of you.
AKA the monad.
Yep. Simultaneously incarnating, and your energetic selves. There's one layer above that, which is called your complete identity. And your complete identity has 1,728 versions of you in 3D. Now, if you ascend to 5D or the planet uprises, then you times that number by 2.
Which is interesting, because that makes out to 9, which is getting to the end of the cycle, which would then make sense to go up to the next. Oh, cool. 1728.
There you go. And it goes up from there. And so basically, when you have an issue with yourself, with somebody in the field, there's a very high potential that you're doing it to yourself, or then there's soul groups, groupings of souls, grouping of oversouls, grouping of complete selves, complete identities. And they're merging together, so it could be part of the groupings as well too. Not necessarily you,
Which also is like collective consciousness. So it's collective consciousness of that group.
Yep.
Ah!
Life's quantum. It ain't no linear affair, that's for sure.
No.
Okay, so we're done that one.
I'd be bored because I'd always have to walk the same way home.
Exactly. Sometimes you feel like you do.
I do. Suknisa.
Mm-hmm. So if you've had any children on this planet or on any other planets, that is the Akashic records for all of the informational bits about who they were and what they did and how many you had. So it collects all the information about your birth. Akashic records, cosmic library, right? Keeps tab on everything that's going on because you know what? Our mental mind and our being can access it. And we can get downloaded when our technology gets really advanced and it's working for the good of everybody. We'll be able to download things into us and have a lot of crazy things happen, and it will be an awesome affair. However, we got to keep in mind that right now we can't keep up with all that information.
Yeah.
All the planets, all the galaxies, all that. We need a record thing so that we can be the cosmic internet. And go in there and access.
Because that's also when we're doing this work, you can fry your nervous system. So if all that information came in at once for us, especially and we are beings, we're not all the same plane. And so if you're on a denser plane and all that came in, it'd just be like fritz out, right? So as you're doing it, you can hold more current. And there's ways to support holding more current as you're moving through, but that's part of it is your nervous system. So people that go through Kundalini like really fast and they're like, oh, I went through it, it was great, and then they're like, and I couldn't function because you're frying your nervous system. And so that's also why the data is like drip content, whatever. I don't even know what that means. That means you get a little bit at a time. I don't know, something with the internet.
Some can handle more if they're like star seeds who've done a lot of work, or you've like spent many lifetimes progressing upward. Whatever your story is, then you'll handle more of that. Because some people seem to handle more with their nervous system than others, but generally you don't want to fry it.
Yeah.
Don't worry that it's going to be too crazy for you, but if you have massive crazy floods of it, of course it's going to be a little impactful on your system.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah. Okay, next one. So
Orosuknichi.
You're right on.
If you've noticed, there's kind of a pattern. There's like there's these 7 type shapes, and then there's the like circular type shapes.
So we have a lot of us have heard of the term inner earth, Agartha, beings living in the center of earth. Well, our inner earth is real. And how do you connect to it? Well, there's the 12 Templar sites. So this symbol and that plane connects to the 12 Templar sites, as well as many other things that we've been downloaded as we're going through the scrub, and other times we've practiced and used it and tested it out. 12 Templar sites are all over the planet. Generally, they're like hot spots of energetic. You can think of them as like sacred sites, but natural vortices of the planet. And they connect into inner earth. And then inner earth is actually at 3.5D. And it communicates with the sun. How do you get into that zone? Well, you got to access these gateways or go through different portals. Yeah. So Earth has portals, and yes, you can teleport. And yes, there's an inner Earth.
And so a book that I'm actually reading right now, it's very relating to a lot of this conversation. It's called The Traveler. I wish I could tell you the name of the author. It's an indigenous man, something Hawk. I'm really bad with names of that. And it relates really to this kind of, it's fiction, but not fiction. When you read it, there's a lot of parallels to what is happening within our world and the capacities to shift through and between, but also the control mechanisms that happen to make it so that those don't become as known.
Exactly, that's the thing. Okay, the next one.
Samti Shokani.
Second last one. So this is where I didn't get any information, I just saw things, so I wrote down what I saw. What did I see? So
what did you see?
You got the symbol there, and let's show me the symbol there. Okay. Doesn't matter which one it is, but I was working on this one, and so there was a light particle that had a huge long tracer, and it would draw it, almost like an effect you'd see in a video. It would draw it around it, and I just stared at it, went around the outside, and it did it through all you activate 3 symbols at a time. Well, with ours there's more, but there's 3 stopping points. Yeah. And it drew huge amounts. It was like supernatural. So.
Are you sure it wasn't the duckweed?
Nope. It's Tameana Mate.
Yeah.
That's a herbal supplement that I'm taking right
Krako soy. I just like saying that.
I know. Sounds like a
Krakosoy.
wild, crazy drug. Duckweed, right? Think about it. Well, exactly. I'll let them know I'm not on some crazy stuff. It's a herbal. It's like chlorophyll.
Yeah, it's like full of protein and all this other stuff.
It's meant to extract a lot of toxins out of nature, so it does it in your body.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Krako soy. Wild name on that one. So basically, a lot of us forget who we are when we incarnate. We forget that it's a spiritual experience. That term, remember who you are and where you come from, comes up lots in the spiritual literature. Okay, so if you forgot who you are, how can you find out who we were and where we were coming from? Well, there's two ways. You have an awakening yourself and you go through some big processes and search for that information. Okay. Or you can access the fact that the planet keeps the remembering of who you are, where you came from all of the humanoids that have ever lived on this planet and all of its other creatures. But if we go searching for it, like I did on my own, I went to go look for this information, where'd you get it from? The Akashic records of that department that kept the templates, which is on each planet. Because then we'd be lost in the cosmos, swimming through fractals, getting nowhere.
True.
Yeah. That's it.
There you go. So that was the
A lot of awesome.
a whole lot of awesome. That was a little bit of a deeper dive. So a little bit more personal to show you, like, these are the things that can be experienced. It doesn't mean that you will experience all of these, but it means it's the potential, like Derek said, the potential of the spaces that can be accessed. And with puo'shk ni Tameana, you can come in and be like, I want my session to be like this today. But you will get exactly what you need in this moment. I've had a being come in, have the most beautiful, like, blissful session, and then the next session they're like, I want that again. I'm like, I can't guarantee anything because it'll work through the layer. Then that session was super deep, super intense, but there was a reason for that. The first session set them up for the second session so that they were prepared. So Tameana meets you where you are and takes you that step further and peels back the layer that is next, which we're not always conscious of. This is what is next for us. But she knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks so much. Again, if you're not following along and you'd like to make sure you're caught up on all the videos, please follow along, regardless of where you're watching this video on, and share to anybody that you think would be interested in these wisdoms. Yeah.
Then book a session.
Yeah, and Gaia code coming soon. So far we have the Antakarana Gaia code if you are advanced plane of your spiritual journey.
Exactly. But we start with the Tameana foundational and work from there.
Okay. So much love and stardust to you. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Ciao, sir.